put on the pads?
It's defensively, it's fun when you put on the pads because that's when you find out who can really play at this level. In the trenches, who's going to be physical. When the ball's in the air, DB wise, like who's going to be able to compete for a ball with shoulder pads on. Life isn't played in 7-on-7, and so it's been a good 2 days, in pads, Tuesday, Thursday, not incredibly clean. We're still putting in some installing for all the youth that we have on the field. They're trying to do right, and you try to tell them, hey, at least, especially these first couple of days of pads, is I'd rather you play fast and be wrong, because I want to see guys who are willing to strike, play violent with their hands, make plays, see the instincts, and then we'll clean up the technique piece. So some guys have stepped up and made some plays these first couple of days. Still a lot to improve upon, but there's some decent cohesiveness, for as many sort of new faces that are out there in terms of, I guess, players that we're going to count on that may not have a ton of reps, in the past, game reps. They've melded pretty good with the older guys that we have. So it's a good start. Really looking forward to whatever we have left. 9 of them or 10 of them left.
In general, you're lighter in the spring because you don't have all the freshmen in here, but you had the injury to Vito. It's just how have there been a lot of moving parts in the secondary trying to fill holes?
Yeah, it's been light, but that's, hey, listen, that's part of it, and that's great. It gets more reps to certain guys that need it, and that's the beauty of spring. It's not 4th and 1. So if you have to put a guy maybe a little bit, for a rep or two out of position, it's good for him, and he gets to feel, oh wow, the guy that actually plays here, this is a tough job. If the guy in front of me doesn't do it right, or if this, and they gain an awareness of the entire structure and how it all pieces together. So, no, it's shoot. That's why you do it. It's no different than the bowl game, huh? So.
How much talking about Vito, how much of coaching is just problem solving? We got a problem here. How do we figure this out?
Yeah, I think it's a huge piece. Obviously the technique piece is a large piece of coaching. The communication aspect might be the largest, just being able to communicate, what you want to get done. But the problem solving piece from both an X and O's standpoint and then a structure standpoint, a personnel standpoint, and sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. I look back at Mississippi State and maybe was it right, was it wrong, in terms of how we try to manipulate personnel for, what we thought we were going to get that game with where we were at injury-wise. So you're always, that's part of the putting the pieces of the puzzle together. But that makes it fun. Now, injuries aren't fun, especially because your heart goes out for those players. But then trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to overcome this? That's part of the challenge.
The outside linebackers you're trying to bring up behind JJ and Jordan. Spring, obviously you got a freshman this summer. You're excited about who you have now with those guys.
Yeah, really we're, you're waiting on those young ones to come in here in June. So, it's nice to have, Joel getting just as many reps as he can out there in the field. So, playing a fair amount of that, medium personnel that we play. But, Tommy came in early, and it's hard just to play, come in and play one of our down defensive ends. Whether it's to the field as a field end or a boundary tackle, even physically you're just not ready for that yet. So, we've got him, playing some stand-up, on the boundary, kind of like we did with Sam, where a lot of times you can develop those guys. They start as sort of big jacks and they move themselves, to playing field end. Pascal's another example of that. So we're, from a body standpoint, it's good for him to start out there, let his body grow naturally, and then we'll figure out where it ends up. He's got the frame and the size that I think, eventually he's going to be a pretty big, thick, stout individual. But there's nothing wrong with having big jacks either. And I'd like to be, maybe a little bit bigger at jack at times to be firmer in the boundary. So it provides some mix.
You mentioned Joel and Drew Phillips. Both of those guys missed a lot of just reps last year. What kind of on the field, like where do you see those missed reps, and how do they kind of make up for lost time?
Well, the nice thing is that, we were able to get some of those reps down the back end of the season last year, whether they were game reps or at least practice reps. But now, between the bowl game and then now spring ball, you can see them really starting to elevate, their game. And they're not there yet, but they're starting to take another step to be guys that can really be strong contributors, for us and playing the SEC. They're not there yet, but both of them have made some good plays thus far in spring, and we need them to continue to push that. They're going to be, both of them will end up having to be vital pieces of the puzzle this year for us. Do you wish you had a few more reps? And you didn't have some of the hiccups in the past, but that's part of it. And the nice thing is that I think there's a want and a will to be good out of those two. And really, both of them have a really strong competitive fire. When they get out there, they compete their tails off, and so that's part of the battle. You want to have competitors and fighters, and Drew's added some weight, so he's stronger right now with the ball in the air against receivers. That's been good to see. Same with Joel. Joel's, he'll be one of the thicker mediums that we've been able to play with, in years past, which is good because it sort of gives you a blend between, playing base and big, with some of the Jordan Wrights of the world, and then also having, a little bit of BB to you. So.
Brad, what are some of the subtle differences and maybe challenges facing this offensive Rich versus what you guys saw from Liam last year?
Yeah, I think they do a really nice job, run game wise. And last year they did as well, but again, I think there are some subtle differences between the Rams and the Niners. We talk about the difference between sort of the McVay tree and the Shanahan tree, and they've done a really good job in terms of being able to target, in the run game, and some of the motions and formations. They really stress you, and so it's great for us defensively. Again, there's a lot of similarity, to what we've had in the past, but there's some subtle differences, and it forces us as defensive coaches to again adapt and figure out puzzle pieces. And now you're trying to do that with some personnel things. You're really working, but it's been good for our guys. Our guys have adjusted. They enjoy it. They enjoy sort of the challenge of it, especially those older linebackers, and a guy like Ty who's been around and seen just about every offense in the book. So it's been good.
Okay, folks.